So this is my backyard. My wife said I can put all the antennas up I want as long as I don't put anything in the grassy knoll in the backyard. So we'll go outside in the backyard and see some of my HF antennas. Let's open up the gate here. So here is one of my antennas. This is a 40 meter to 40 meters to 10 meters ground plane. So it's mounted on rigid pipe up 10 feet. And the antenna is made by 05. It works very good. And there's my choke with a couple of Torrids on it. And this antenna did not need any ground radios at all, but since I had the time and I'm retired, I decided to put 32 ground radios in. And so that's how I have it. What you'd say guide, because we do get high winds in the high desert. So I used 3 not stainless, but metal fence posts to tie it off. Works really good. This one is probably my favorite antenna of all. I made it from telescoping aluminum that I bought from DX Engineering. And so it's 66 feet long. It's an Nvis antenna for 40 meters. And you can see I used metal fence post here and some 1-inch PVC pipe to hold it. And it's got a little homemade balun at the feed point. It is mounted 10 feet off the ground. It has the lowest noise of any antenna that I have. Works fantastic, especially between here and about 600 miles. I have talked DX with it before. This antenna here is a 40 meter ground mounted vertical, and it goes up 33 feet tall, and I do have guide ropes on it because the wind blows pretty much in the high desert. So I put that in originally as an omnidirectional 40 meter antenna, and then I wanted more gain. So somebody had mentioned to me that if you add a reflector, so there's a reflector right there, I think that's like 34.5 feet tall. There's a reflector. This is the driving element. And then here is a director. And down farther is another director. So the whole antenna is 66 feet across in diameter. It gets, I'm just guessing, probably about 8 dB gain on 40 meters. So it does really, really good. And as you can see, I like to use metal fence posts for mounting my antennas and stainless steel radiator hose clamps. So right now it's pointing northeast, right towards Europe. Originally I had it pointed directly north, and I used these fence posts here to connect the reflectors to and the directors. This antenna, I can talk to South Africa anytime there's any station down in South Africa. I can talk to them very easily. I usually get 5.9 plus. Of course, I run about 600 watts too. That does help. Here is another antenna right here. It's hard to see. It's 270 feet long, and it is a Beverage antenna that runs along my fence line. It's only for receiving purposes only. Works great. Oh, and you can see up there, that is an end-fed half-wave antenna for 80 meters to 10 meters. Now, and I have some more. I will go over antennas over here. I did have an inverted V for 40 meters hooked here, but one of the wires came off of it, so I need to put that back up. So this is a in-fed half-wave antenna for 80 meters to 10. That's the feed point right there on that post. It's up 15 feet, then it travels along here, and it goes up to 25 feet for the rest of the way for about 130 feet. You probably can't see it in the video. And at the top up there, that is a G6 made by Hustler. It is 2 5/8 waves vertical collinear. It's called the G6 because it is 6 dB gain. It works really good. Let's see if I can open up my fence here. So that antenna is a homemade 17-meter dipole. Whenever I get on 17 meters, it works great. I don't ever get on there very often. So you can see how I like to use electrical conduit for my mask. So that's like 1.5 inches right here. And then another 1.5 inches. And I used, they call them Mineralax or minis. You can get them at Home Depot. And that's how I was able to make this one up 25 feet to the feed point. And there's a balun right there that feeds it. I didn't make it, I bought it from Balun Designs. Here is the feed point for my Beverage antenna. I bought that from DX Engineering. 270 feet long, only for receiving purposes. It works really good. And now I'll go over to another section. In fact, if you can, I don't know if you can see that on top of my roof. There's two 2-meter 440 verticals over there. The one on the left is the GP9. The one on the right is the X700. So the X700 is about 7 feet taller than the GP9. On the right-hand side, that's a X700, 24 foot tall. The one on the left is a GP9, 17 feet tall. Around the back over here. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's my 20 element beam. 10 elements vertically, 10 elements horizontally. And it's fed it with 2 runs of LMR 400, so I can switch between vertical and horizontal polarization. It works great, works really good. And so I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is a disc cone antenna that I use just for receiving. You can transmit on it. I have transmitted 2 meters and 440, so it works, but it's not very good. And you can probably see there's 4 stainless steel radios that I added to the GP9 because Fred told me it makes it work great. So I just happen to have 2 4-foot long stainless steel whips, and I connected them just a little bit below the GP9 That's the X700 right there. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but there is 11 element 70 centimeter M squared beam that I have permanently pointed towards the Cajon Pass. I think it's like 13.5 dB gain, something like that. Works great. Works really good. And there's another antenna, but I don't think you're going to be able to see it. It is a horizontal loop antenna that I use on another radio I have in my bedroom. And of course, I go up on my roof pretty much all the time. So I leave this ladder just pretty much stuck right here all the time. There's some more pictures there. My coax. I don't exactly make things look pretty. Over there on my chimney, I do have another mount for putting another antenna. I have this antenna right here. It's a GP6. It was mounted up where the GP9 is, so it's just laying on my roof. And if you look way over there on the roof, there is a 5 element beam antenna that I had at one time mounted to the pipe right there, and I took it down because I needed the coax for something else. This is what I call my brown house. You know why I call it the brown house? Because it's brown. I was at one time thinking about turning it into my radio shack, which would have worked really good. So you can see the wire up there. It's part of a 230-foot long horizontal loop. It's not very high up in the air. I'd like to get it about 30 feet, but not today. There, sitting on the ground, is a 3-element quad antenna that I originally made to do single sideband. It works great. Works really good. Took it down because I wanted something with a little bit more gain to it, but I still have it. I can put it up anytime I want. So there's my backyard. So I have just about 2 acres here. So I've got all kinds of empty space for antennas. The problem is where my HF station is located, it's like 300 feet from the feed point over there on my 4-element array. That's about 300 feet, which is about the maximum distance I really care to go. It's okay for, 40 meters, 7 meters, 160 meters. But anything higher than that, I'd get too much coax loss. Now, if I wanted to put a 160 meter up antenna up, I have no problem. I can go way over 300 feet and get very little loss. So I will close this. And I will go into my HF radio shack so you can see. It's nice out here in the summertime. So now I'm in my VHF radio shack, and there's the ICOM 9700, and below that there is an FT450D that I bought many years ago. I have that hooked up to a horizontal loop, and that's the antenna tuner that I use with it. It's only rated for 300 watts. I rarely ever turn it on, but when I do it, it works great. There's my rotator control, a Yaesu 450AG, and there's the speaker that I listen to, an old Kenwood SP520, And you can see I have a couple muffin fans sitting on top of my radio, blowing on kind of medium speed. They're very, very quiet. I probably didn't need that, but I wanted to do it. And there is an FTM 400 that I use for crossband repeat on 2 meters or C4 FM. It works fantastic. It's a great little radio. I have another one of these in my car. That's pretty cool. And let's see, right here is my 8-band graphic equalizer, a W2IHY. It has 2 preamps. You plug in the microphone, which I have my microphone plugged in right here, which is an XLR. Then it has an input preamp, so I can turn up the gain so that I get enough drive into the equalizer. And then it also has an output preamp, which feeds into here, my microphone input. And I listen to Fred. I got a Torrid right there, or not a Torrid, but a ferrite bead. And so here's the microphone, which I've had for a couple weeks. Works really good. It might not sound too good, but it looks professional, tell you that. And let's see, this doodad right here, I flip this, and that's how I key my transmitter to talk on 2 meters, 440. I also have another switch over here that I can flip on and off to key the transmitter. So I can either do it here or I can do it here. I usually do it here because it's easier. And there is my Astron 35M. And underneath my thing right here, I have another 35 amp power supply that I'm not using at the moment. And right here is my coax switch for all my antennas. So in the first position I have the beam antenna. The second one is the beam antenna horizontally polarized. The third position is the GP9, and the fourth position is the not GP, but X700. And there's another coax switch under here, which you probably can't see. If I flip it, it changes over, so I use my 11 element 70 centimeter 11 element beam that's on my roof. And you cannot see it, but underneath here I have a 2-position coax switch, and I can switch my antennas so they connect either just to this radio or they connect to that radio. And so I can use all my antennas, with either radio. Of course, mostly I use the ICOM 9700. And there's my room. It's kind of messy. I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 HT radios over there. I got some soundproofing or sound foam that I bought online that I'm just getting ready to put up on my wall. I already have a strip over here. Let's see, and this is the FT3D Yaesu. Does C4 FM, works fantastic. A great little radio. I probably really didn't need it, but my wife said, "Why don't you buy yourself a new radio?" I said, okay. So I usually use this for crossband repeat through the FTM 400. There's my TV. There's one 55-inch TV there, another 55-inch TV over here. I do have my Geochron on there, but I don't have it turned on at the moment. And let's see. And this is fairly a new radio, an Anytone 878 Plus. And it does DMR and it does AM, or it does FM, so it'll do regular repeaters. And it'll also do APRS. I use it for doing DMR. And I have another one that looks exactly the same, except it is a an 868 and not a 878. If you're going to get into DMR and you want to buy a HT, this is the way to go. And this is my HF station out in my garage. It's a mess. I got tools all over the place. So there's the ICOM 7300. Great radio. And this little doodad here is called an RTR-2, and what it does is if you have a radio that only has one coax connector on the back, but you want to have a separate receiving antenna, you connect your main antenna to here, and it also has a place for 3 other antennas that you can screw onto the back, and this thing will automatically switch between transmit antenna and receiving antenna. It's a pretty cool little gadget. And there's a coax switch that switches between, let's see if I remember, the 17-meter rotatable dipole, and also switches to the Beverage antenna for receiving. And there's the antenna tuner, rated for full legal limit, 1500 watts. This little thing here is a noise canceller enhancer. It works good, but it takes a long time to get used to how to tweak all the controls to make it work good. Gets rid of noise. And this is the RCS4, which, oops, I can switch between 4 different antennas, which I do have an antenna switcher out in my backyard, and I can switch between all my HF antennas. Works pretty cool. Pretty cool. And there's a cheapo power supply, variable. I can vary the voltage, the current. This antenna here I use whenever I put my whenever I put this radio in crossband repeat, the Yaesu FT8800, I use this as the receiving antenna. Notice Mickey Mouse. This is my receiving antenna. I can drive like a mile or 2 down the road and this antenna will still pick it up. And then I transmit, when I'm in crossband repeat, I transmit on the G6 that's on the side of my house over there. Old-fashioned Radio Shack power supply that I normally run just a few odds and ends things around here. And then I have a Maritron AL811H, puts out about 800 watts if you really drive it hard. I don't like to go that high. I usually keep it down around about 600 watts. Fantastic. This thing is absolutely amazing. It's called an LP100A. It's a digital vector watt meter. Extremely accurate. Extremely accurate. If my wife knew what I paid for that, she would not be happy. But if you got an amplifier, you definitely need a really accurate watt meter to tune to get the most watts out of your amplifier. Let's see, I can turn this thing off. And there's an oscilloscope I bought on eBay. A 50 megahertz dual trace Tektronix, and this I bought online. It's a Chinese made a function generator which will do sine waves up to 50 megahertz, do square waves, sawtooth waves, arbitrary waves. Really cool. I mean, it's useless to have this if you don't have one of these. That's how I think in my mind. So here's another Astron RS35M that I use to power pretty much all this stuff. And let's see, there is another oscilloscope down there, really super old. It does need some work done to it, but it does work. Let's see, what else? What else? Here is the antenna that Greg, K6EGG, is using on his house. It's an X50. As you notice, it's just laying in my garage. I told Tony he can have it, but I don't know how I'm gonna get it to him. I think it's just a little under 6 feet tall. I bought it originally when I lived in a HOA housing tract that I could not put up any type of outdoor antenna, so this one just barely fit up in my attic. Worked really good. As you can tell, I'm retired and this place is a mess. I need to clean it up. And there's all my soldering station and tools for building things. Got a whole bunch of stuff here, components for making circuit boards, stuff, some number 10 wire. So let's see. We'll go outside. You might be able to see my antennas from outside. I don't know. It might be too bright. So there's my 2 vertical antennas and my beam antenna. I really need to put my beam antenna up higher because right now, even though that beam antenna is 13.5 dB gain, my verticals, which are fed at the same height at 25 feet, they go up. One goes up 24 feet, the other one goes up 17 feet. So a lot of times my vertical will work better than my beam. So if my beam was higher, about as tall as the top of my verticals, there would be no comparison. The beam would beat out every single time. There's the G6 and a homemade 17-meter rotatable dipole, which is non-rotatable at the moment.